Man, when people ask me like how ACBN started, a lot of times I talk about, I was an entrepreneur, I'm running detailing nights, and it's starting to grow, and you're realizing, okay, what do I need? And so we brought other entrepreneurs together. But a lot of times I don't talk about where I was 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, I was actually coming out of a pretty gut-wrenching bankruptcy. We went from making about $50,000 to 500,000, and then down to zero, and actually down to minus. And that whole journey really showed me that there's a better way to do it, and there was no foundation to what I was building. And it was because of my wife, and I love Cher with all my heart, and my kids too, but Cher picked me up out of that really depression that said, I thought I was this business owner winning awards and this and that, and then I'm in my bed not wanting to get out. And her reminding me that a lot of the things that I had built up to that point, I still had that intellectual property in my head. But when I started to rebuild, I realized that when I was growing and we had exponentially grown, there was no one to really go to say like, hey, this is where I'm at. And I remember going to the Jamaican consulate, be like, hey, my company's growing, I'm looking to franchise and expand. And they just look at you like with a blank stare and they're like, that's not what we do here. And so I went to other organizations that are supposed to be Black serving, but again, it wasn't in their mandate to help companies exponentially grow. So yes, the entrepreneur centers, I love them. Shout out to Beck, Brampton Entrepreneur Center, that can help you get to a point. But then when you're ready to exponentially grow, you need that foundation. And I saw what it was like when you could grow and the foundation's weak and things just crumble. So now rebuilding, I'm saying, okay, what needed to exist for that not to happen? Because I don't want entrepreneurs to feel what I felt as they're growing their companies. And so that entity that would be able to sit down and talk to an entrepreneur and say like, hey, where are you at? What do you need? And be able to point them in the right direction. So with my wild, crazy idea, we said, okay, let's see who else in the community would show up and say like, hey, hear this idea. And so Chris-Beth, I told her about it. It's like, okay, let's call a breakfast. Let's have a breakfast and call people together. So Keisha showed up, Ray showed up, and Ray, I'm sure he's gonna rib me tonight where there was no breakfast at this breakfast. So we're at it. And Darren Green showed, I think he's in the UK now, and Jodi-Ann. We show up to this breakfast, and it's really just to talk about what does the Black entrepreneur need? And thus ACBN was born. We said, hey, we will start to build out this entity that can sit down with an entrepreneur, listen to their stories. And then when I told Derrick the idea, and I mean, really watching the evolution of DF Media Productions from a single camera and a dream to now full like film production type entity, and knowing that it was when ACBN kind of started that DF Media started, and the growth of it, an entity like ACBN has been able to be there. And we've done that for so many other business owners where they've started or they've been growing and they're like, yeah, now there's an ecosystem of support. And so nobody feels alone. It's interesting when you think of us sitting at a breakfast table and then how are we gonna build out and actually get traction? Is this even an issue that more people are experiencing? So doing the call out to say, okay, we're gonna have our first event. And that's where we booked out the Chinguzi Ski Chalet. And hey, we did our promotional video and said, something is brewing in Brampton that we wanna support more Black entrepreneurs. ACBN is gonna be birthed out of this event. And then seeing 50 plus people show up, and hand to God, if 10 people showed up, I would have been over the moon. If 2 people showed up, hey, the show must go on. But 50 entrepreneurs, and the theme that came out of when we were talking to people in the room, people came from Cambridge, people came from Scarborough to Brampton just to meet and talk with other entrepreneurs, see what was going on, what supports are there, and then knowing that ACBN is gonna be there along with them as they're growing. And now, 5 years later, being able to talk to some of those entrepreneurs and see the growth see how ACBN was able to support them at different times, some of the partnerships that we've had over these now past 5 years. And again, big shout out to the Toronto Community Benefits Network, Rosemary Powell there, that believed in me from we met when I was running Detailing Nights. And as we started ACBN, being able to really guide me in what it takes to run a nonprofit. I mean, she's so inspiring in the way that she runs TCBN. That was something I was able to model. And also Isaac Olawalafe with Dream Legacy Foundation, being able to sit down with him and say, hey, I have this idea, I'm thinking of this network. And the thoughts that ran through his mind was like, hey, don't let it be like things that don't work. And so really taking that to heart and saying, okay, what can we build that will work? We've been able to partner with over 40 organizations across Canada. Cassandra Dorrington from CAMC, I mentioned the Black Chamber of Commerce. Across Canada, we're the BC, Black Business Association of BC, and the Black Business Initiative in Halifax. So having partnerships from coast to coast so that ACBN doesn't feel like we have to do everything. There are elements that other organizations do a lot better than us, that when we meet an entrepreneur, we can say, hey, if you need X amount of dollars, let's say a loan up to $250,000, we know the FACE Coalition is somewhere that we can send them. Now the Black Opportunity Fund exists. If you're looking to hire from the Black community, you can go to something like Black North Initiative, and they have these programs in place. So really now being more of that hub to say, no matter what stage a business owner is in, we're able to point them somewhere. And that's something that really did not exist 5 years ago. And if we can hang our hat on anything and being part of building out this coalition and building out the Black entrepreneurship ecosystem, I would say it's that. The ecosystem to me is the win. We can get programming dollars, we can get money to do programs, but us being able to collaborate, and I always say we are solving complexity through collaboration. There's no way forward without collaboration. So any organizations that exist, we are each our own node, and then the way that we connect to each other makes us a better entity for the entrepreneurs that we work with. Well, being, I guess, one of the co-executive directors of ACBN and now leading this entity and being partnered with other organizations and other leaders, the question always comes up, like, leader, where are you leading me? And for an entrepreneur, I really want to make sure that we're leading them in the right direction. And again, selfishly, I still have Detailing Nights. I still want these supports to exist because I'm an entrepreneur that's still hustling, still wanting to grow. But then you start to realize that there's gaps in what entrepreneurs need. And you have to ask the question. And the more that we survey, and then that ballooned into the first ever Black labor market assessment. And shout out to Dunn Pierre, Barnett and Associates, Dr. Pierre, when I talked to him about how do we make better decisions? How do we actually support entrepreneurs in the best way possible? And he said, have you done a labor market assessment? And we're like, of course, what is that? So being able to work with him and commission this type of survey where we were able to ask almost 1,600 Black entrepreneurs a series of questions that really dug into the root of what they're experiencing. And so it's no longer just surface level, oh, we need to do kind of one-on-one programs. It's how do we make a Black business a company that people aspire to work for? And we saw in the study, a lot of times non-Blacks and even Black unemployed people don't want to work for Black business. And that's because of the stereotypes that exist. We find that Black business is really invisible to different types of capital. We were talking about banking and having trouble getting funding at the banks, investment, the low amount of investment dollars, even philanthropic, very small percentage goes to Black organizations. And really it's because we're not on their radar. So now with this data, we're able to build out stronger programs that'll elevate the quality of businesses so that when you go into a university and you're talking to MBA students, they're not only aspiring to work for the McKinseys or the KPMGs of the world, they're actually aspiring to work for Black firms. And that's something that we never really understood with the previous surveys and reports that were done. But now being able to do the labor market assessment, we're able to see what do Black businesses actually need. And so we build them from the ground up to be investable, to grow and hire staff. And that was a big thing that was missing when Detailing Nights 5 years ago was growing, it wasn't built to scale. So now we're able to talk to entrepreneurs and be like, okay, if you're aspiring to grow this company and exponentially grow it international, all that type of expansion, we now know the fundamental things that have to be there. If the foundation's not there, you're not going to be able to grow properly. One thing that we didn't have when we started 5 years ago was a 5-year plan. So it was really, we were winging it. And now being able to meet and talk with entrepreneurs 5 years later, we can really say from here, 5 years into the future, and even 50 years, we've started to think about that. And now we're inviting a lot of the entrepreneurs, especially those that are present. And it means so much to me when people show up. And I know we've done events where there's one person, 2 people, and then we've done events where there's over 100. And all of them, when people show up to say, you know, I see you and we see them and we're able to support them on their journey. But now we have more firepower. You know, 5 years into the future, I could see us supporting over 1 million entrepreneurs to get their start, talk to young entrepreneurs and have them start their businesses, and ACBN is along with them. Talk to MBA students and start to recruit business analysts. I remember when we first hired our first junior business analyst, and now being able to amplify the support that we're doing for entrepreneurs. And that partnership, when we started the study group, and again, I'm inviting everyone to join these study groups that we are doing now, because every week we're able to take a step out of the work and really strategize and figure out what is needed and create new ideas and just brainstorm back and forth. So that collaboration piece is the biggest thing that I'm excited about, and being able to now work with other organizations and create those masterminds, work with entrepreneurs and see them exponentially grow and continue to scale, and not just be kind of linear growth. We want to go for exponential growth. And looking to the future, this is where those that have been with us on this journey, I want to see those success stories come out of it. I want to see children that were born. Keisha, our board member and one of our co-founders, has children and had a child while ACBN existed. And so 20 years from now, we want to be able to see that child dip their toe in the water of entrepreneurship and know that ACBN still exists to support them. Putting success plans around the children that our entrepreneurs are having, so that it's not about 1 year, 2 years in the future. We're thinking 20, 50, 100 years. We want to, from today, we're 5 years into this game of an infinity game. It's not about running this race and there's a finish line 10 years from now. It's like, no, this is an infinity game. And the more that we realize the work that we do today, 100 years from now, it's going to have the impact that entities that are 100 years old today are having. And we're like, oh yeah, how did you get to 100 years? This is what we need to be thinking about. It's not about helping the entrepreneur today. It's helping them create an asset that will be generating wealth for their family and the community 50, 100 years from now. So all those names that you think about that are over 100 years old, we are building them today. And 100 years from now, your 4th generation grandchildren are going to be talking about your business that you're able to start in 2020 or 2022 or 1990, wherever you start. I think Ray was 1999. So the fact that that entity has started and we exist today, we are going to be supporting them to have longevity. And it's not about the short game anymore. It's all about the growth and the building of wealth for the future generations. With all my heart, I want to thank those that are here today, those that we've engaged with over these past 5 years, those that I haven't met yet that we're going to be engaging with over the next 5 years. And again, 50 years, 100 years into the future, ACBN is here for the long game. And it warms my heart to see you here today, but also knowing that we're going to be supporting those that aren't here into the future. So enjoy yourself. And Ryan, I see you in the corner. Make sure that you talk to the people and remember names, because, and for those that I meet on the street, again, I apologize if I don't remember your name. Now that, we've engaged with over 5,000 entrepreneurs, more times it's happening where a person starts to, I know you. I get your emails and we're connected on LinkedIn, but I'm gonna get better at remembering people's names. So challenge me tonight if I remember your name. Have a good night, everyone. Peace.